To say the debate over child literacy in the past few years has been passionate is an understatement. What is the best way to teach children to read? Today, a scathing new report commissioned by Federal Education Minister Brendan Nelson is set to reignite that debate. In calling for a major shake-up, it recommends teachers go back to basics with a greater emphasis on phonics, a method that relies on breaking words into syllables and sounds. But critics fear an overemphasis on phonics is old-fashioned and promotes rote learning at the expense of comprehension. What are the other key recommendations and how will they affect teachers, pupils and parents? Rebecca Bailey reports.
This 6-year-old may sound like she's learning a new language, but it's actually English, reduced to its 44 basic sounds.
Everyone say air,
Phonics-based learning like this could soon take on a greater importance in Australian schools if the authors of a new national report into the teaching of literacy have their way.
The overwhelming evidence to support the systematic direct instruction in phonics is overwhelming, both locally and internationally.
It kills a love of learning, it's meaningless, it's boring, it puts kids off, and it's also the most difficult way in the world of learning to read.
I ask myself, why is it that 1 in 12 children cannot pass a very basic national reading benchmark in Year 3 and 1 in 8 in Year 5, and the figures of course are much worse for Indigenous students.
Concerns like these prompted Federal Education Minister Brendan Nelson to commission a national report card on how Australian children are taught to read. Dr Ken Rowe from the Australian Council for Educational Research concludes that while Australia still ranks highly overall, the education system must do better for those who are struggling.
Unfortunately, Australia has a long tail, and that includes 17%, for example, of boys who are underachieving. It also includes something like 35% of Indigenous students that are significantly underachieving.
My dog, he will be your friend.
But others dispute that Australia has a literacy crisis.
We don't have a literacy problem. We have a very high literacy rate. We are absolutely sensational in this country. Finland is always top. Now, I never count Finland because Finland has a very phonically easy language. English is a very, very difficult language phonically. So we always come either second after Finland or third after Canada or fourth after New Zealand. But we're always in the top 4, always.
Yes, we're doing extremely well. Everything's terrific. But what those figures hide is about 30% of Australian children who are leaving the school system in Australia functionally illiterate.
Was it the cow who almost fell in when she tilted the boat and made such a din?
Mem Fox is well known as a best-selling children's author, but she describes herself first and foremost as a literacy teacher and academic.
No, I don't think it was the sheep.
She represents a coalition of educators who passionately defend the current system.
Do you know who sank the boat? We are absolutely sensational in this country. We must be sensational because the USA is failing like mad, and they are inquiring of us how many teachers of ours we can send over to help them out.
Goldfish are relaxing to watch.
This is the approach to teaching Mem Fox believes is world's best practice. Commonly known as whole language, it's how most Australian children are being taught to read now.
The most important thing about reading is that it always makes sense. We get information from it. Who can tell me something that we just read about in this book? What's something that's not very good about having a goldfish?
That you can't kiss them.
The whole language approach incorporates phonics, but also focuses on the context of words to encourage comprehension.
We start with a whole story that captures kids' hearts, that makes them want to learn to read, that makes them cheerful, that makes them positive towards learning instead of hating learning, which is what extreme phonics does because it bores them to sobs. So we start with the whole, And then we go down to the sentence, and then we look at the word, and then we break the word up. So we do phonics, but it's at the end of the journey, not at the beginning of the journey. And because the phonics comes at the end of the journey, it can be related to something real that the kids know about, that they enjoy.
While Dr. Ken Rowe agrees that an integrated approach to teaching reading is essential, he says phonics must be the starting point.
Once children have the basic phonemic structure of language, then of course they can move on very, very quickly, and they've got the appropriate word attack skills to read quite complex text. In other words, you've got the building blocks and the foundation for then moving on to become a competent reader. That without those foundations, of course, then many, many children suffer.
Let's do the sounds in the word house. Well done.
Dr. Rowe argues children haven't got a solid foundation in phonics because their teachers haven't learnt it at university.
Too many of our teachers haven't been trained specifically in the basic building blocks of the alphabetic code.
What are the three phonemes in the word was?
W, O, Z.
These teachers have gone back to school. They're learning the first principles of a phonics-based system called THRAS. Marg Carter is a 30-year veteran of the teaching profession. The principal of the Grange College in Melbourne believed it's so important that her staff learn the foundations of phonics that she sent all 65 of them to the THRAS course.
For so many children who just didn't get it, this spelling business and this reading business, it's empowered them. Many of them who we knew we had issues with in relation to spelling and reading, those children have been turned around by this newfound knowledge.
There are children who can read ill, bill, drill, dill, grill, skill, kill. There are children who can read that, but they don't understand what they're reading. They can say the sounds, but so can I say the sounds when I'm reading Indonesian. I can read Indonesian, but if I don't know what it means, I'm not reading.
My word is bridge. It is on the chart because it has the trigram TGE.
Prep teacher Narelle Firminger is putting into practice in the classroom what she learnt on the THRAS course. She says it's already making a difference.
I'm really passionate about this program because it has results and the children have a better understanding of reading and writing. I think more practical information provided at university, like a tool like this, would be more useful.
There will be reform. There has to be. It will require a change in regulation and an increase in money.
Side to see on Mr. Petter's play.
Education Minister Brendan Nelson intends to take up the findings of the Literacy Review with his state and territory counterparts.
It wasn't the pig.
In the meantime, no one disputes that parents have a crucial role to play before their child even sets foot in a classroom.
If they're read aloud to, then they sweep into school and storm into reading.
You do know who sent the boat.
It was the little mouse, wasn't it?
Now wait for the arguments. Rebecca Bailey with that report.